Just coming off a conversation between Raoul Pal and NLW. I listened to this conversation and a few interesting things were said, and I just want to push this episode out because I think it relates a lot to our own career and it relates to where the hedge fund industry is going. The purpose of this podcast is to give people a sense for what it feels like to run a hedge fund. I think to give a little bit of context of where we come from, where the hedge fund industry is going, what all these big developments that we're exposed to right now mean for the hedge fund industry. I think those are interesting topics that are worth discussing. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's August 7th, 2021. This is Crimdelco. It's a Saturday. There's no update, so we're still up 8.9% for the year. The market's up 18.4%, 18.5%, and we're underperforming by roughly 9.6%. So Raoul Paul said something interesting on this podcast. It was an NLW podcast, so it's about crypto and Bitcoin and all that. And he said that the new macro, so the macro of today is what we at Orange Capital Partners would call fundamentally new concepts and engineering practices. In other words, disruptive technologies. He said, for example, AI, computer vision, crypto, blockchain, robotics, and then a couple of more things. So that's the new macro. And I want to try to put this in context where I think he's coming from and then the way I see it, because I do agree with the statement. So I think Raoul Pal is, I don't know if he himself is a macro hedge fund manager or he was, but he definitely is embedded in that space. He lives in the Cayman Islands. I am sure he probably chit-chats with people like Hugh Henry. He just seems that kind of guy. He has a British accent. So the point here is that he's saying that the macro guys from the past are kind of all switching towards what we're doing here at Orange Capital Partners. They're putting their capital into large secular trends where disruptive technologies are creating change. Now he's a little bit more specific about it. He talks about demographics also. So for example, the baby boomers retiring and Gen X, Gen Z and millennials taking over. So there's new adoption of technologies. I personally am not so excited about this demographic story because I think change is driven by entrepreneurs and by technological breakthroughs in the lab, and then people just adopt it. It's not the other way around, but that's me. But the point here is that if you look at the macro industry from the past, it was an industry that was allocating capital either into what's called relative value. So you would look at, let's say, the yen relative to copper, relative to gold, relative to stocks, and then you would have a prediction of, let's say, okay, this asset will do better than that asset and all that stuff. And then you had, I think, over time, people started to get away from that relative value trade because it became crowded, like a lot of other trades, and it became more of a secular macro trade. So, and that started definitely in the early 2000s with the BRICS movement. People in the macro space kind of stopped looking at relative value and tried to identify, okay, where is the capital going? Where are the big swings? What are the big waves? So for lack of a much better analogy here, they went from typical surfing into big wave surfing. So let's not do these little swings, little tricks, little in and outs. Let's just catch the big waves and get the thrill and make the big bucks. And within that context, I think that's what Raoul Pal is trying to say. The big bucks now are being made with disruptive technologies. So it's not anymore about macro in a sense of, oh, well, the Venezuelan government is devaluing, so there's some value here by shorting their currency, or Brazil is having a demographic change and their currency might do better than others. It is technologically driven change, disruptive change of behavior driven by disruption, and that's where big money is made. And this is exactly where Orange Capital Partners falls in. And we came into this not by design. When we started, we were a risk arb fund / maybe a traditional macro fund. So we were looking at On the one hand, we were looking at M&A. We were interested in M&A because that was the kind of background that particularly my partner Zovinar came from. But it was also good money, and it just started to become more competitive. I personally came from the biotech world, which was event-driven. In a sense that you had these big events that I spoke about recently. Also, we expect, let's say, with Editas and Intelia, there's just clinical studies, and they can move stocks in both directions very fast. So we came from this world. We started investing, and then the 2008 crisis happened. We started the fund in March 2008, so about 6 months before everything fell apart. And we quickly reassessed our strategies and took advantage of this secular moves that presented themselves back then, which were, on the one hand, the complete disastrous asset pricing environment, and then the money printing by the Fed, and the reflating of the economy, and also the rise of disruptive technologies because the reflation of the economy it was kind of like a cryogenic therapy where a lot of bad businesses were either going bankrupt or just put aside, and new businesses like Tesla and Crispr and Amazon and Apple and all these businesses were able to grow and grow themselves into dominance. So where do we stand today? We stand in this particular secular move of massive technological change. On our side, it is the Crispr technologies, it is the computer vision, AI-driven computer vision robotics, this crossroads of technologies that are proliferating each other by almost like a flywheel, giving each other more acceleration. I just spoke in today's first episode when I spoke about the breakthroughs in mRNA as a part of the delivery technology for Crispr. I mean, those are massive breakthroughs that were unthinkable 10 years ago, that are now enabled in vivo, in people, in patients. And it's just amazing how these things are working. And hopefully we won't have setbacks. And if we do have setbacks, that doesn't change the thesis, because these technologies, programmable, life sciences, computer vision, AI, and blockchain technologies, those are the three big ones that we look at Orange Capital Partners. There's other ones, the metaverse, blockchain also in more applications, such as, for example, the metaverse and money within the metaverse, things like that we're not too much interested in. Augmented reality is another one I think is a big one that is underestimated. But let's get back to what we care about, and just to rephrase our thesis for the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years, we believe that through computer vision, we will get robotics to a point where AI can become sort of the killer application. Robotics, self-driving cars will become the killer application for AI. That's what I meant, and why? It's because through computer vision, we can, on the one hand, solve a lot of the AI problems. On the other hand, also, we can make it scalable at a price that is affordable to be scalable at scale and deliver to a lot of people. So computer vision as the key, and then of course all the work behind it, the neural net technology, also the hardware technology that needs to be developed in order to actually get to a scalable technology. We will have the AI Day of Tesla in a short period of time. Hopefully that will be a milestone on that front. So the other big trend that we see is what we call the Crispr space, which we segment into 3 spaces. We talk about CRISPR, gene editing technology, as the big driver for digitizing life sciences. We talk about allogenic cell therapies, which is another massive driver in terms of being able to attack cancers through immunotherapies and using healthy immune cells and then reprogram them. That is a big breakthrough. And then we also, in the context of Intelia, we're very, very excited about the in vivo applications of CRISPR, which of course could have massive potential. And that's where mRNA comes in, because mRNA is being used as part of the lipid nanoparticle delivery mechanism to code for enzymes such as Cas9. The third one is the blockchain technology that we don't have a lot of investment at Orange Capital Partners. We have a small investment in Ethereum and Algorand. And the thesis there is that we do believe that these assets have a lot of value, that the blockchain as a concept will proliferate at the speed of the internet, if not faster. We might allocate a little bit more money into that space. We are not necessarily, let me rephrase that. I think the most interesting way to participate in the proliferation of blockchain technology and smart contracts and the tokenization of the economy is through Ethereum and Algorand right now. There's probably others also, but we like the idea that we can participate through the tokens themselves. There will be a time when we also invest in businesses, but right now we're not focused on that. Now, to summarize, Raoul Pal's statement that the disruptive technology are the new macro is something that we second. We believe that that's exactly where the capital is being used at the most efficient, in the most efficient way in terms of generating returns, risk-adjusted returns, of course. Or in other words, it's not gambling. It is because of the secular trends. We do have enough conviction that we can put large positions in those situations, and those trends are driven by technology. We don't think that they're driven by demographics. They're driven by technology and by the instantiation of knowledge into products and services, into hardware and software. And I guess it's the next level of software. It's the world. That's another way to look at it, where we also now are sort of crossing the chasm between software and hardware, both on the AI side through robotics and of course also in the digitization of life sciences, where we're not just crossing from software to hardware, but even from software to hardware to biology, which of course is very exciting. And lastly, the blockchain technology is opening up new concepts of freedom, new concepts of governance, new concepts of value and identity. This is a philosophical, political, social change that we compare to the changes in the Renaissance, when society went from cleric and monarchic organizations to what we call democracy today. It was the beginning of the Enlightenment and the distribution of power, distribution of thought, distribution of idea, the popularization of epistemology. So knowledge and what is in the world was not defined anymore by somebody or the church or something like that, but it was defined by a distributed consensus mechanism that we call market, or we call scientific method, and I think the blockchain technology is the next level of that sort of democracy 2.0, and that like the first one, the Enlightenment, we believe this one also will unleash enormous amounts of energy and power and wealth creation. Thank you.